Welcome everybody to Walking Between Shadows. We're your host. I'm Ben,
I'm Karen.
and this week we're going to revisit that very first case, our inaugural case, Debbie Harris and Ambria Halliburton.
Yes.
Yeah, it happened on Easter Sunday in 1999.
Mhm.
So the community was like right between Trenton and Milan.
Yeah, that was very close to where we went to school and grew up.
Yep, yep. And there's several cases around there that are still kind of questionable too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Lover's Lane. That's still out there in Trenton.
Mm-hmm.
But this one, I know it still bothers a
Yeah.
lot of people. A lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. And we had her brother come talk to us,
Hmm.
Tommy and his wife Rebecca, and we had one of her old roommates actually, Kristy
Yes.
Sedlock.
Yes.
Yeah, had a great time visiting with all of them.
Getting to know them and getting
Mm-hmm.
to know Debbie
Mm-hmm.
and Ambria through this family and
Yeah.
friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna start this with the original story that we covered in that very first episode. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Gibson County, Tennessee is home to many residents, but it's also the home of one of the most heartbreaking double murders to ever occur in the state of Tennessee. The March 30th, 1999 murders of Deborah Harris and Ambria Halliburton continue to haunt all that knew them. Earlier that year, Deborah and her 8-year-old daughter had moved into a trailer with Jamie Harris. Jamie and Deborah separated in February of 1999. Both moved out and planned to go their own ways. When plans fell through to the new home, Deborah had contacted the former landlady of the trailer, Dawn Patterson, and asked about moving back in. Dawn worked with Debbie and allowed her to move back in. And on March 15th, 1999, Deborah and Ambria settled back into that trailer.
Right. So they were only out for like 2 weeks after her and Jamie separated
Yeah, yeah,
out of the trailer for 2 weeks and then turned around and moved right back in on Caraway Hills.
yeah.
Gotcha.
Well, Dawn Patterson says she last saw Deborah Harris on March 29th, 1999, when Deborah gave her the money for rent for the
Hmm.
first part. Before she left, Deborah told Dawn that she had an interview for a second job. Neighbors had noticed Deborah's blue Chevrolet Beretta seemed to be in the driveway more than normal. Deborah did not show up to pay Dawn the remainder of that rent that she had worked out to pay her on April 2nd. April 4th, 1999, on Easter Sunday, a friend stopped by for a visit. The friend opened the door to the awful smell of decomposition. Investigators hung an orange sign on the front door that read the words, "Danger, Biohazard." 2 a.m. Monday morning on April the 5th of 99, agents from the TBI arrived on the scene. They processed potential evidence until mid-morning. They did not find any unusual fingerprints, DNA, or other forensic evidence to help identify the perpetrator. So it sounds like they went through that scene pretty quickly.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there was only familiar fingerprints and what
Yeah.
footprints. Is that what they say?
Yeah, some footprints, but they couldn't really tell much about them beyond maybe the size of the shoe.
Yeah. And we'll get into that when we go into the
Uh-huh.
investigation.
Uh-huh. On April 8th of 1999, the bodies of Deborah and her young daughter Ambria were laid to rest in the Salem Church Cemetery in Gadsden, Tennessee. Governor Don Sundquist authorized a $2,500 reward for each victim for information leading to the arrest, indictment, and a conviction of the person or persons responsible for the murders of Debbie and Ambria. The Gibson County Sheriff's Department, along with the assistance of the TBI and the FBI, considered more than 20 potential suspects before rejecting them. One of the first suspects in the case was Angel Renendez. Is that how you say his name?
Yeah, I think so.
Resendez.
Resendez Ramirez. Was that right?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
Um, he was reported by the papers by the name of Rafael Resendez Ramirez,
Okay.
which is was his most well known alias.
And the railway killer is
Yep.
what they called him, right?
Yep, he was known as the railway killer.
Yeah. And
He's just
he was ruled out pretty quick, right? I mean, his
yeah,
timeline and where he was located at this time just
yeah,
didn't match up.
right. Renendez died by lethal injection on June 27th of 2006. He was never charged in connection with the murders of Debbie and Amber.
Right.
Another well-known serial killer eventually took responsibility for the murders of Debbie and Ambria. Tommy Lynn Sells had been arrested for another crime,
Mm-hmm.
and during that crime and that investigation, he confessed to killing Debbie and Ambria in Tennessee.
And many others.
Yeah, it was tons of others.
So he did kill I think she was 13 or 14, Kayleen Harris.
Yeah, that's
that
the one he
right?
got convicted of. Yeah.
And that was down and no relation to Debbie.
Mm-mm.
But that was down in Del Rio, Texas, I believe.
That's right.
So yeah, he was it 2000
Yeah.
when he was charged with that
Yep.
and taken into custody.
Yep. And then he died by lethal injection in 2014.
2014, yes.
Yeah.
For that murder, because that's really all they could get him on.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So all of the following are details or simply the words of Tommy Lynn Sells.
Okay.
Sells said that he took a 20-mile detour off of Route 40 when he reached Jackson, Tennessee. According to his statement, he reached the front door of the quiet trailer sometime around midnight on March the 30th, 1999. He knocked on the front door and it slightly opened. He slipped inside. He saw a stack of watermelon designed plates on the counter. In the drawer just below, he found a knife. He walked down the hallway into Deborah's bedroom where he says a calico cat jumped out and hid at the sight of him. He said he was amused to find a price tag with the name Tommy on the dresser. Then he eased himself into the bed and put the knife to Deborah's throat. According to Sells, Deborah never made a noise or put up a fight. After raping Deborah's unresponsive body, he stabbed her multiple times. He then walked to the bathroom to clean the blood off of his arms and hands with a bar of soap he found on a little mouse-shaped soap dish. He looked in the hallway and saw little Ambria standing there looking confused. He lunged at Ambria, chasing her into the living room. When he caught her, he slammed the knife into her body with such force that she actually lifted off the ground. He stabbed her more, and she went limp. He thought he heard a noise from Deborah's room, and he went in there and stabbed her one last time, leaving the knife in her chest. The issue with Mr. Sells' confession is that he confessed to many murders after being charged with the December 31st, 1999 murder of Kayleen Harris. Some of the murders he claimed responsibility for were never proven to have happened. Many believe that Mr. Sells confessed to other murders in hopes of becoming incarcerated somewhere else or to get special treatment while on death row. On the other hand, many do believe Sells is responsible for this murder. He talked about, and possibly more of those that he mentioned. Deborah Harris and Ambria Halliburton remain on his list of victims to this day.
So let's kind of dissect that even.
Mm-hmm.
We know in 2001, Jimmy Hand, who was the lead investigator for Gibson County Sheriff's Department at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and the sheriff, Joe Shepard, at that time, did go down to Texas and interview Tommy Lynn Sells and ruled him out.
Yeah.
In 2001. And there was a lot of talk at this time too that Jimmy Hand possibly gave up some information to Tommy Lynn Sells and kind of guided him through this crime scene.
Yeah, yeah.
But we'll start at the beginning because in his confession, he stated he ended up in Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
Debbie and Ambria were not in Jackson. They were in Milan, Tennessee, which is about, 15, 20 minutes from Jackson?
Well, that's what his statement said,
Okay.
was he was 20 minutes north of Route 40
Oh, okay.
when he got to Jackson, Tennessee.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So he would have had to have a way to get there. And this is not an area, we've been out there several times since we first covered this case in 2022.
Yep.
This is in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a trailer that was set back off of a deserted road, pretty much. I mean, there's other houses on this road.
Right.
But, I mean, it's pretty much deserted, and it's in where Debbie and Ambria's trailer was located, it was um, in the middle of this kind of,
Mhm.
like area of
Mhm.
all these different roads that connected.
Mhm.
So it was not something you would come upon
Right.
as a drifter,
Right.
and that's what Tommy Lindsay's was. And there's no talk in his confession that he stalked Debbie or Ambria.
Mhm.
And in every other confession, he basically, he said, I stalked them for this amount of
Yeah.
time. I knew them, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, Not with Debbie and Ambria.
Mm-mm.
So he says he goes to and knocks on the door, and the door's unlocked, and it just kind of pops open.
Yeah.
Everybody that knew Debbie, and when we talk about her life a little deeper,
Mhm.
will understand that she did keep her doors locked and had good reason to keep her doors locked.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there. And then he says he goes in across some watermelon plates,
Yeah.
stacked plates in the kitchen. Well, when you walk into the trailer, you would walk into like an area that would, to the right would be the kitchen,
Mhm.
and to the left would be the living room.
Mhm.
Partition wall there between the kitchen and living room.
Mhm.
And then you would go down the hall to your left, bathroom. There would be a bedroom, a bathroom, and then another bedroom.
Mhm.
So it would have been Ambria's bedroom, bathroom, Debbie's bedroom in the very back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So he goes in and he finds these plates that were stacked up. When we covered the Dardine murder cases out of Anna, Illinois,
Mhm.
um, it was proven that they did have watermelon plates stacked up. So did he confuse that?
Yeah. It sounds like, and that's why they could never really get into any other investigations and prove anything
Right.
because it was never the full story.
Hmm. Yeah.
It
It was
was
such bits
highlights.
and pieces
Mhm.
and things that didn't match up. Like nobody really knew that Debbie had a cat,
Right.
didn't
Nobody's
German
ever said
cat.
anything about her having a cat.
Right. And I mean, the locations of where Debbie was found, um,
Mhm.
she was clothed, fully clothed, looked like she just got off work even.
Mhm.
And, jeans, blue sweater, a white shirt underneath her
Yeah.
sweater.
Yeah.
Um, and Ambria was located in her bedroom, in her bed.
Mhm.
So that was wrong with Tommy Lynn Sales.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, they did rule him out.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty easily.
Right. And I think that what we've never done before is go back to the start with Debbie
Right.
and Ambria. And
Right.
that's kind of why I wanted to do this and why you wanted to do this.
Yeah. We wanted to, or felt the need to introduce the side of Debbie that nobody's talked about,
Right.
the experience that she had growing up.
Right. And what could have come from her past, not in Tennessee, maybe,
Mhm.
that maybe could have led up to what happened
Mhm.
March 30th of 1999.
Yeah.
So Debbie was born in 1968, February 28th of 1968, to her parents, Darrell Barnes from Humboldt, Tennessee, and Jeannie Horton, who was also from Humboldt, Tennessee. And their relationship was not very long lasting at all.
Mhm.
But Debbie did stay in contact with her dad, Darrell,
Yeah.
throughout the years. So 6 years later, Tommy is born,
Mhm.
Debbie's little brother. And their life, just listening to some things that they went through, was pretty rough.
Mhm.
Jeannie was very much an alcoholic and had a lot of jealousy towards Debbie. She did marry a man and lived in Monterey, Louisiana. So they were living down after, Tommy. I'm not sure if he was from Humboldt. His dad was too.
Mhm.
But they did move after that to Monterey, Louisiana with a man named Kenneth White.
Yeah.
So Jeannie marries Kenneth White, and Tommy has very fond memories of Kenneth,
Mhm.
very much like a dad to him and Debbie.
Yeah.
Um, and Jeannie was still drinking quite a bit, a lot when these two were young,
Mhm.
Debbie and Tommy. And like Tommy recalls Debbie being like a mother to him.
Yeah.
She was very nurturing. And Jeannie could never swim. So Debbie would take Tommy down to the pool, and he remembers when she was teaching him to swim underwater,
Mhm.
and he would keep his eyes open and underwater, and Debbie would say, "You can close your eyes. I'm right
Mhm.
here. I'm going
Mhm.
to be right here." And that they kind of leaned on each other because at home it was very volatile between Jeannie and Kenneth.
Mhm.
They both drank a lot,
Yeah.
and when they would drink, they would fight. And Jeannie was a little woman, 5'1", 100 pounds,
Yeah.
but she could give as much as she could take. And Tommy said she had one hell of a backhand, you
Mhm.
know. And at one time, her and Kenneth were in an argument, and she tried to stab him with a butcher knife from the kitchen.
Mhm.
And her hand slipped down the blade,
Mhm.
and she severed all the nerves in 4 fingers
Mhm.
doing that. And so that's some things that they went through. And Debbie would always try to pull Tommy away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so it was pretty rough. You know, a lot of times Jeannie would accuse Debbie of sleeping with Kenneth.
Mhm.
Um,
God.
yeah. So it was rough.
Mm.
And they were still, Tommy and Debbie were still going back to Humboldt and visiting family. They had family there, their dads.
Yeah.
And they also had Jeannie's sister, Sandy, and her
Mhm.
husband, Bill.
Mhm.
And Sandy and Debbie had a very close bond.
Yeah.
And that was something that never did, that was strong throughout, even with the volatile relationship between Debbie and Jeannie.
Yeah.
So Debbie was still a teenager. She's back down in Monterey, and um, she meets Gary Book.
Mhm.
And this is Debbie's first husband.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure exactly what year that was, maybe 85, around 1985 that she met him,
Mhm.
or early 1986. But Gary Book did go to Kenneth White and asked for permission to marry Debbie.
Mhm.
But let me say this, because I just now kind of figured this out while I was researching all this
Mhm.
into Debbie's past. Gary Book was 13 years older than Debbie.
Yeah.
So Debbie was, around 16 years old, 17.
Mhm.
That would have made Gary around 30,
Yeah.
which is, that's a big age difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like in February of 1986, Jeannie, I believe it's Valentine's Day, Jeannie is cooking a pot roast in the oven. And Jeannie goes in to check on it, and Kenneth follows her in the kitchen.
Mhm.
And he grabs a bite of the pot roast. He sneaks a bite,
Mhm.
and he chokes to death on this pot roast in the
My
kitchen there.
God.
They tried doing the Heimlich,
Yeah.
it was lodged too deeply in his throat.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
That's awful.
yeah. And Tommy recalls being in Humboldt at the time and being at Steele Middle School.
Mhm.
That's the middle school, right, in Humboldt?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Jeannie showing up and giving him Kenneth's belt buckle.
Mhm.
So, I mean, yeah, and it was hard on him,
Yeah.
finding that out,
Yeah.
and Debbie too. So very soon after Kenneth passes away, Debbie and Gary do get married, and I believe it was 87 that
Mhm.
their oldest daughter, Selena, was born,
Mhm.
and very shortly after, Debbie gets pregnant with her twins, Sierra and Jamie Book,
Mhm.
and, it was hard for Debbie. I'm sure it was
Yeah.
very hard for Debbie to even know how to be a mother, um, being that young, whereas Gary was much more established,
Mhm.
you know, just because he had years on her,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And their relationship was not so great, toxic, um, abusive.
Did they ever get into fights where the police were called or?
I'm not sure about that. I
Yeah.
mean, that would have to be something Tommy would have to,
Yeah.
if he knew even.
Yeah.
Tommy does have some good memories with Gary. Gary would take him hunting a lot. He's a big hunter. Took him to deer hunting camp and things like that when he was down there.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, but after a short period of time after the twins were born, Debbie and Gary did divorce,
Yeah.
and it was a bad divorce. And during this divorce, Debbie's own mother, Jenny,
Mhm.
testifies against Debbie in
Yeah,
court.
she's part of the main reason that she got found unfit, right?
Yes, yes,
You still think that's a jealousy at work or?
yes.
Mm,
And the reason why I feel that way is because of what happens next.
yeah.
So Debbie comes back to Tennessee to be close to Aunt Sandy,
Mhm.
and Tommy is back in Tennessee. Um, and so, I mean, after after Tommy and Debbie get back to Tennessee, and Gary has full custody of the three girls,
Yeah.
um, Jeannie moves in with Gary Book. So she moves in with her ex son in law
Mhm.
to help raise the kids.
Mhm.
And that seems weird to me
Yeah.
because she wasn't good to Debbie.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, do I feel like that was jealousy? Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even imagine why she didn't say, "Hey, let's get the kids, Debbie, and you and
Mhm.
I will work together." But
She didn't like her.
I mean,
Her mother hated her.
it's not because she could have done a better job.
Right. Right.
So very soon after Debbie gets back to Tennessee, she gets pregnant with Ambria. So Debbie would have been about 21 years old. Yeah, about 21, 22 years old when she gets pregnant with Ambria.
Mhm.
And I believe this was a very short term thing with the Ambria's dad.
Mhm.
His name is Billy Harrison. And I think that Debbie knew that this was her baby. I mean, that Billy wasn't going to push her
Mhm.
to try to take Ambria, you know, any of that.
Mhm.
But she gets pregnant with Ambria.
Yep.
And I mean, within a month later, down in Louisiana, Gary Book and Jeannie Horton are together in a truck, in Gary's truck.
Mhm.
Jeannie had been drinking all day and was known to just get very, very drunk,
Yeah.
but never blackout drunk.
Yeah.
But this day with Gary in the truck, she got blackout drunk and passed out.
Mhm.
And it had been raining down there for the whole week.
Yeah. Yeah, it was real wet,
Right.
soggy.
Yeah. So, I mean, this was January the 18th of 1990.
Mhm.
So it'd been raining all week. Gary parks at the top of like a levee
Yeah.
and he gets out to relieve himself.
Mhm.
And the truck rolls down the hill with Jeannie in it. Jeannie couldn't swim. She was
Mhm.
scared of water.
Mhm.
It took divers until like 3:30 in the morning to find her. So hours of
Mhm.
looking for her. And she was found outside of the truck.
Yeah.
Um, and, she had drowned. Gary was back at home.
Mhm.
Tommy recalls that had some bruises and things, from trying to catch the truck, but
Mhm.
he couldn't.
Yeah.
And so,
You couldn't do anything.
and there was an investigation into this. I
Mhm.
mean, there was a big investigation into this, I believe.
Mhm.
Gary was questioned and looked into about this.
Mm.
So, I mean, that was something that went on then. Ambria was born in August the 4th of 1990.
Mhm.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah, 1990. I was wanting to say 91, but it was 1990. And she was Debbie's baby.
Yeah.
Um, very loved
Mhm.
and very well taken care of by Debbie.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't know what got Debbie into AA meetings, but she did get involved into AA big time
Mhm.
and met a man by the name of Brian Halliburton through AA, and they were both very involved with AA.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
they became, pretty close through this. And Brian and Debbie did get married. And he was there through the younger years of Ambria, and he did adopt her.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this was a formal adoption or what. Um,
Yeah.
I do know that at the time of their death, Ambria was still on Brian's insurance, and
Mhm.
he didn't even know that.
Mhm.
So, I mean, but they married, they moved out to, is it Gumflat?
Gum flat.
Gumflat.
Mhm.
And that's kind of out like, I don't know exactly where that is, but it's out in the middle of nowhere too, isn't it?
Yeah, it's somewhere.
Well, they were living next or close to Aunt Sandy, and Uncle Bill.
All right. So everybody's listening. If
Yeah.
you can explain where gum flat is,
And it's Gum Flat.
right.
Okay. And I've
Leave a
been out
comment.
there. I've
Yeah.
been out there, but I don't know where I was. It's just,
Yeah, and I don't remember where it is, so
right. So, yeah, let us
yeah.
know where that is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're living out there, and Tommy recalls Ambria's first birthday.
Mhm.
Okay. And how she was covered in cake. I mean, he said from the top of her head to the
Mhm.
bottom of her feet was
Mhm.
covered.
Mhm.
And Aunt Sandy had given her a nickname,
Mhm.
and it was Dolly because she had this blonde hair and these big brown eyes. And it just kind of seemed like she came to be Debbie's keeper,
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
she kept it going,
Yeah. Oh,
you
yeah.
know. And everybody loved her very, very much.
Mhm.
But the relationship between Debbie and Brian did not last either.
I
No.
think they were just 2 completely different people.
And I mean, I look at it now and I think that Debbie was always looking for that love.
Mhm.
Was it from the mother, the father, something to feel, like a part of something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it was just that's the way I think.
Mhm.
She was going from this one thinking that, he'll love me and he'll take care of me, but it just
Mm-mm.
she never got a time to heal from
Right.
all the things that she had been through as a child
Mhm.
and young adult. I mean, losing your 3 children, and from my understanding, was able to talk on the phone with them some
Mhm.
throughout, but never got to see them after she lost custody in, what was it, 89?
Yeah. 88. Yeah, 89.
Right?
Mhm.
So, I mean, after Brian and Debbie did divorce, Debbie gets into a relationship with Jamie Harris.
Mhm.
And that relationship was, I want to explain this the best I can because I've been around Jamie, um, and his friends, and um, I think it was more like that. There was a lot of people that were friends with Jamie, and that
Mhm.
that kind of came in as to be Debbie's friends as well.
Mhm.
And I think she was well liked by by his friends. I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that they loved each other. I do. I think that Debbie and Jamie did love each other.
Mhm.
Um, but I think that it was a quick love,
Mhm.
and it was not very convenient. I mean, really.
Mhm.
Um, and Debbie came with responsibilities, and I don't know that the maturity level at that time for Jamie. I don't know
Mhm.
that he was prepared for that.
Right. Right.
And I do believe that. there are people that will say that there was some abuse there as well in that relationship. But for whatever reason, I mean, they did separate in February
Yeah. Yeah.
of 1999, and he did have another girlfriend at the time. And we went through this, we went through this in the past that, the day that to recall his timeline when all this happened with Debbie and Ambria and his character. And I have to say that when we first started this and we talked to people around Trenton and around Milan and around Humboldt, it seemed like everybody had a finger to point and a story to tell about Jamie, but that's easy to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it seems like he was right there. He was the last one to be in a relationship with Debbie. And
it hadn't been broken off that long either.
No, it has not been. It's only a couple weeks or a month, 1 month. So, I mean, it was easy to say that. And even when investigators went back into the house, during the crime scene, they did tell Tommy that there was, his prints were everywhere, but that wouldn't be,
Well, he had helped them move in.
Right. He'd lived there. I mean, they had lived there. So it wouldn't be abnormal for him to have some fingerprints there still at all.
Right.
But I mean, so we go through this and we're trying to put all these pieces together. And here I go again. I think the problem with pointing the finger at Jamie is that he was so close to the situation that, it was easy. He was a very easy target for everybody to say that he did this. So, I mean, now we're going through suspects, and I know that there was up to 20 suspects at the very beginning of this.
Right.
And they were able to start narrowing those down.
Yeah. Well, the county had cleared nearly all of them within just a couple months.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. And so then this thing with Tommy Lynn Sells comes along.
Yep.
And I don't know how he heard about it or what he had heard about it. But the sheriff and the lead chief deputy went down there to interview him. Jimmy Hand and Joe Shepard.
Yep.
And rule him out.
Yeah.
Yeah. But even when they came back and started talking about the details of their discussions with him, it felt like Jimmy Hand had led him. More or less told him a lot of story.
Yeah.
And that's where his confession of it came from. And
you would think that the investigation done, especially by the Gibson County Sheriff's Department, they're going to start here. They're going to start in that area and work their way out.
Yep.
Now, I know that when we talked to Tommy about what was going on in Debbie's life during this time, like what was going on in her life. And he told us that when Jamie moved out at the end of February, he did, the phone was cut off. So Debbie did not have a phone.
Right.
For those 2 weeks that she was living at Caraway Hills in a trailer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which would not be abnormal either. I mean, he had moved on. He had another girlfriend. She didn't have a phone.
Right.
So who was she talking to? We did talk to Kristy Frame, who talked to her and did have plans with her the night, I believe, was it Monday or Tuesday night? The 30th of March.
I don't remember for sure, but it was at least one of those 2 nights.
Right. And Ambria didn't go to school that Tuesday either. She did stay home from school on March the 30th. So Don Patterson saw her. Debbie comes to Don Patterson's and pays her a little bit of the rent. Says, I'll be back Friday to pay the rest.
On the 2nd.
Right. So she's there on the 29th, which will be on Monday, right? Tuesday, Ambria doesn't go to school.
Right.
And Debbie goes to work at Piggly Wiggly in the bakery.
Mm-hmm.
And when we filled out this FOIA to go in and you went in and talked to the sheriff's department, they did tell you that she received a phone call
While she was at work.
on that Tuesday, the 30th.
Yes.
So Debbie receives a call at work and gets upset.
Yeah.
And leaves work upset.
So they had interviewed everybody at that store,
Mm-hmm.
including the girl that took the call.
Mm-hmm.
And all they would say is that that girl knew who called,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the person that was responsible for Debbie leaving work early in tears.
On that Tuesday, March the 30th.
Yes.
So Debbie goes back home, and I don't know where Ambria was that morning.
She was at home.
Was she home alone?
Yeah.
So she was home.
Mm-hmm.
Debbie goes back to the trailer, and she's not seen again or heard from again.
Mm-mm.
So we do not know who called Debbie that day at work.
Mm-hmm.
But when you went in and talked to the sheriff's department and you talked to the cold case investigator, Raymond Simmons, right?
Yeah, Raymond Simmons.
And he was from Humboldt, so he was kind of familiar with Debbie's dad.
Yeah, he was the chief of police at Humboldt PD for years.
Okay. And
Yeah.
he took over this in 2019.
Yeah.
And in 2019, there was a news clip went up.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was WBBJ, and they were doing a clip on Debbie and Ambria,
Mm-hmm.
and they were talking about sending the knife that was found
Mm-hmm.
in Debbie
Mm-hmm.
to have some further DNA testing done, right?
Mm-hmm.
What came of that?
Well, I mean, we found out that nothing new was learned from the first time. That the only thing they could tell about the DNA that they found belonged to a man.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
And it makes me wonder, we covered the sister murders
Mm-hmm.
in Stewart County, Tennessee, a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And Ray Crouch, the DA there, did send for DNA on theirs. And this happened in 1980.
Mm-hmm.
And he sends off to a special place in Florida, and they come back with results, but there has to be further testing that has to be done to find out more.
Yeah.
And that's very expensive.
Yep.
And it makes me wonder if with Debbie and Ambria, did they get some answers, but not complete answers without further testing?
Yeah. Those tests were conducted so far apart. A couple of things you got to consider. Yeah, maybe the lab technique and technology changed and could yield different results.
Yes.
That were more detailed. But the reality is it doesn't move the needle very far off of center from the original testing because it still identifies DNA.
Mm-hmm.
Only now you have this thing called mitochondrial DNA, which is, summed up as another set of unique codes
Mm-hmm.
to identify a person. And so maybe that next round of testing did find some of that, and I think it did.
Well,
and then there's that whole ancestral thing that's you have to pay a fee more or less to somebody to sit there and run all of that information down.
mm-hmm.
And that's very time consuming and expensive.
Right.
But yet it's the only technique that can define a DNA in some cases.
Right.
There's no other way to match that DNA.
And it makes me wonder if that's what that needs to be done.
Yeah.
And I know that, so when we started talking about this again, and it was more investigative podcasting when we started this with Debbie and Ambria, and someone did come forth and said that, they did receive a phone call around this time from Jamie
Mm-hmm.
Harris,
Mm-hmm.
asking how to get blood out of his van, I believe, out of his
Mm-hmm.
van.
Yeah.
The carpet in his van, his dog was sick, and you know.
Yeah.
And this witness did try to contact the Gibson County Sheriff's Department.
Mhm.
And there was a lot going on at that time because this is when we put in the FOIA as well.
Right.
And you did go in and speak to Brad Oliver. You spoke to Raymond Simmons
And the sheriff.
and the sheriff.
Mhm. And, Danny, the chief deputy.
Okay. And basically what they've told to you and some of the things they told to you were that the person they do believe they know who did this.
Yep.
Almost, I mean, I think they're pretty sure.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking in Raymond Simmons' eyes when he said that, and he had absolute confidence.
Okay. And I think that it was easy when we started this for everyone to tell the rumors.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying this witness, even she said maybe I had the times wrong,
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
when this happened.
Mhm.
Um, so that could be, that could have been off. But I think that they were so close to home
Mhm.
and so close to where this happened, it was easy to say, well, I heard this and I
Yeah.
saw this and it gets very confusing.
Yes. Yes.
And I think that who did this first um, had a lot of rage,
Mhm.
and it was personal.
Mhm.
Debbie was stabbed 17 times.
Mhm.
Ambria 5, I
Mhm.
believe.
Mhm.
Um, it was bad.
Yeah.
Um, I believe the person that did this would have taken themselves as far away from this situation.
Mhm.
Um, they could. There was, I believe, the landlord even said that she saw was a tractor trailer,
Well,
a tractor
a tractor, yeah, a big truck
parked in
in
Debbie's
front of her, yeah, in front of her trailer.
somewhere in those. Because we have to remember that Debbie and Amber were killed on March the 30th, and their bodies stayed there in that trailer for 5 days.
Mm.
It was April the 4th before they were found.
Mhm.
So somebody had 5 days, and
Mhm.
they did not clean up the scene.
Did they have to? No.
I believe we were confused. They did have 2 knives at the
Mhm.
at the sheriff's department. Mhm. One, they weren't able to get anything off of. I believe
Yeah.
it was just,
Yeah, Brad said they only could get anything off of one.
and it
It was
was
like a hunting knife.
right.
Yeah.
So what was going on? Who was Debbie talking to around this time? Um, nobody really could pinpoint anybody she was dating.
Mm-mm.
Um, she was beginning to call home
Mhm.
to Monterey and talk
Yeah.
to the girls,
Yeah.
her kids.
Mhm.
And according to Tommy, Debbie and Ambria were planning on going down to Monterey
Mhm.
she wanted to be back in her kid's life.
Mhm.
And that's the part that confuses me a little bit because I don't know if she was proved unfit, if she had to give up all her rights.
Mhm.
Would she have to get those back? Or was it she had some rights left and she was wanting to go be around her kids?
No, I mean, if it was gonna be a legal fight if she'd given up all her rights.
Unless Gary Book would allow her
Sure.
to.
Sure. I mean, at the end of the day, whatever the law says, you're still human,
Mhm,
you know, and, yeah, I think that was going on. Mhm.
mhm, right.
So she had to have been talking to Gary a lot.
Well, um, yeah, according to Tommy, and I was reading some posts on the missing and unsolved in Tennessee.
Mhm.
Um, there was this original post that you read at the very beginning of this. um, Underneath the post, one of her daughters from Monterey said, you know, I never met my mother or
Mhm.
my sister Ambria, but I talked to them on the phone.
Mhm.
So there was a period there where they were talking again.
Mhm.
And I don't know if Gary was trying to help her get back down there, um, or not. I don't know. Um, he was remarried at that time.
Mhm.
He did marry somewhere after Jeannie did pass away,
Mhm.
after Jeannie drowned, and some time before. Well, his wife died. His
Yeah.
second wife died in 2000,
Mhm.
in February of 2000. So there was just a year there in between, his first wife, and then he had to get married in there somewhere between that,
Mhm. Mhm.
between 90 and
Yeah.
99.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And she's gone basically a year later.
yes, she was 41 years old.
Under what
I
circumstances?
don't know. I
Mm.
do not know the circumstances of his wife's death at the
Yeah.
time.
Tommy or nobody ever knew or heard of
I
it?
don't think so. Like I said, she was young,
Mhm.
41 years old.
Mhm.
And yeah, she did pass away, and just a year after Debbie.
Mm.
So that, yeah, he had either, it just seems like this family, is just,
A string of tragedy.
yes,
Mhm.
yes. I mean, yes.
Mhm.
And you couldn't meet a better person than Tommy. I mean, just a
Oh, yeah.
sweetheart,
Yeah. Great guy.
great person. And
Mhm.
it just seems so, you know, this is devastating for him.
Mhm.
And I think about it, and I think about how he is the only one left because Daryl Barnes, Debbie's dad, is gone. Jeannie's gone. Aunt Sandy's gone.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Tommy's the only one that's known her all of his life.
all of his life. Yeah,
Mhm.
and still has no answers. And I want to try to, at the beginning, it was easy for us to point at Jamie
Mhm.
because it was closest to the,
Yeah, it was
to,
it was the freshest relationship,
yes, and
lived
Tommy
in the
Lynn
place.
Sales.
Mhm.
Tommy Lynn Sales, because he did give some details, but we don't know what details he was given.
That's right. That's right.
You know, they ruled him out for a reason. It wasn't because he got details right.
Yeah, yeah. No,
So,
and I understand that Jimmy Hand was incompetent as a investigator,
yeah.
that he botched a lot of stuff, you know.
Well,
So,
I think I think that Debbie did know who this person was.
yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that he felt like who had anything to gain? If you really think about it, who Jamie would have had nothing to gain from this.
Mm-mm.
Nothing.
No.
Um, Tommy Lynn Sales, no. I mean, but a serial killer doesn't, you know, he didn't even have the hunt,
Mm-mm.
like, which is odd,
Right.
you
I
know?
mean, that's serial killers are serial killers because they stick to their MO,
Yes, and this was
and this was
not.
not.
This
This
was
was
not.
outside, yeah.
I mean, Tommy Lynn Sales says that he raped Debbie, but there was no proof, and that she
Uh-uh.
was not raped.
Mm-mm.
So this to me seems like somebody needed her out of the picture.
Yeah, yeah. And Billy Harrison wasn't that guy.
No, no.
No.
I mean, Ambria was 9 years old,
Yeah.
and what what would he have to gain?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Mm-mm.
Nothing.
No.
So I mean, when you were speaking with the sheriff's department, they did give some kind of clues to this
Mhm. It
about
was.
this.
Yeah.
Yes. So what did they tell you, man?
Well, the first thing they said was they were dead. This person's dead.
Yes.
And, just sitting there, my mind immediately went to Tommy Lynn Sells
Tommy
because
Lynn
he'd been
Sales.
executed in 2014.
Yeah.
And I just didn't put two and two together.
Mhm.
So even that first day, I came back and was telling you this, and we had this consensus that it had to have been Jamie.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, there's no way Tommy Lynn Sells could have done this.
Right.
There's no way that you even think about Brian Halliburton or Gary Book.
No.
Okay. Too far removed, right?
I think, yeah.
Yeah. So you go back and look at this over and over again to see the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the statements they made to me is this person died recently of lung cancer.
Yeah.
And so again, I'm thinking, well, now that's not Tommy Lynn Sells. He was executed.
Right. Jamie's still alive.
Jamie's still alive. Billy Harrison's still alive.
Jimmy Tanner's still alive. Now that's who found Debbie and Ambria, and a lot of people around that area,
Yeah.
say, well, he's, he did this.
He did it. Yeah.
Debbie never liked him, but
Mm-mm.
no, he's still
No,
here.
and he knew that her and Jamie were over. They'd been separated for a month. And he hung around Jamie.
Mm-hmm.
He knew what was going on. He knew everything.
Mm-hmm.
But he creeped her out.
Mm-hmm.
She said that. Did he think, well, Jamie's gone out of the picture. I don't have to worry about him anymore. So I'm just going to go over here, and just stumbles onto a crime scene.
Right. Well, the claim is that neighbors and friends drove by there and noticed her vehicle there.
Yeah.
And had moved. And maybe it was just one of those things, where something's going on. This is she has to work.
Yeah, and the landlord hadn't been paid on time.
Mm-hmm.
She's 2 or 3 days past due.
Right,
now.
which was Good Friday when Debbie said she'd be back. So
Yeah,
she said I was willing to just kind of overlook it for the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but come Monday, she didn't get paid.
No, well, Sunday is when Debbie and Amber were found.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So again, you go back and you look at all this. Died recently of lung cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't die in prison.
No.
Just died recently. You talk about all the rumors that you hear about this whole thing, including deathbed confessionals.
Yes.
And you start to believe, like, something tells you, because they said it on their deathbed, that person listening heard it perfectly.
Yeah.
No stress there.
No.
Or that they were telling the absolute truth.
Yeah.
No. I don't buy it. And you didn't either.
No.
So again, going back to square one, we found another thing odd about the whole situation is that Gary Book had a P.O. box in Crockett County that was active until 2006.
Yeah. I think everyone has tiptoed around this one because of well, first of all, whenever Debbie and Amber were found on the 4th, that Monday, which would have been the 5th of April, Tommy was, contacted and informed what happened. And he called Gary Book in Monterey to tell him, about this.
On the 5th.
On the 5th, Monday the 5th. And Gary was working offshore at the time. So they had to call him offshore and bring him back. But we don't know where Gary was March the 30th through April the 4th.
Yeah.
Or,
So that's exactly where the investigator told me that he shored up some confidence in this.
Right.
And he said, we have contacted the energy company that Gary Book worked for.
Right.
And that's all he'd say. He wouldn't wink. He wouldn't grimace. He would not indicate anything else. And yet I still felt like he was telling me they found out Gary Book didn't go on the platform until Saturday or Sunday
Mm-hmm.
after Debbie was supposedly killed.
Right.
So that would have given him nearly 96 hours. It's a 6.5 hour drive from Milan, Tennessee to where they were from in Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
Round trip, you stop for an hour or two here and there. Round trip, you're talking about 15, 16 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just stating the obvious.
Gary Book did die on February of 2021.
Uh-huh.
You went in and spoke to Raymond Simmons and the Gibson County Sheriff's Department in
October
of 22.
of 22.
So, yeah, it's a little bit less than a year
Mm-hmm.
after that. Yeah. Um,
No, it's been a little more than a year.
yeah, a little more than a year
Yeah.
since Gary Book passed away of lung cancer.
Yeah.
So,
Year and a half.
um, yeah. Also, the investigation did take them down there. They did go, um, Gibson County did send investigators down to Monterey, Louisiana too, right? Um, to talk to them down there about this, about
Yeah.
Debbie and Amber. They even went back to Jeannie's case,
Yeah.
the drowning case in 1990,
Yeah.
and we're trying to link, that together as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it seems like everyone has kind of walked around this very, I don't know, quietly.
Well, and don't forget that this was also, they were down there during the period just after his next wife passed away
Right.
in 2000.
Right. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I know that his daughters loved him dearly. Um, and there was never a definite, this is who did this, because I don't, um, but there were things said that would lead very much
Mm-hmm.
to who this was. And their confidence, the sheriff's department's confidence in who this was, seems pretty confident.
Well, let me add this to what you're saying. You know, Raymond Simmons was absolutely confident in who he had decided it was through his investigation.
Mm-hmm.
He did. But every time I brought up anybody else by name, he'd write it off right away.
Mm-hmm.
Nope, nope, nope. Don't think so. We talked to informants. That's not the story. Don't think so. Tommy Lynn Sells. That's part of when the question was, did Jimmy Hand feed him information and screw this up? And y'all are hiding it.
Mm-hmm.
No, no. Raymond Simmons was confident in what he had understood and figured out through his investigation. And I don't think that investigation told that story until 2021.
Right. I don't either.
Yeah.
I know in 2019, like I said, they did send off for more further analysis on the knife.
Mm-hmm.
They did get back something.
It just yielded the fact that the DNA belonged to a man, but they
Yeah.
couldn't identify that man.
They did say that in the home, the boot print that they believed belonged to the killer was about what, size 12?
12.
Size 12 shoe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there was no other prints as far as nothing like that. As far as feet, like any other
No,
person
like
in the home.
tracks outside, debris from outside to inside, inside to out. They looked at all of it. They looked at all of it.
Right. And I think that's kinda how we have to leave this
Mhm.
with, people are gonna want an answer.
Mhm.
Everybody wants an answer.
Mhm.
Maybe everybody wants an answer. I think that there's some people that would not want this answer,
Mhm.
that it would ruin their memory of someone that they love very much.
Yep. Yep.
But this is for Debbie and Ambria, and for Tommy, and for Kristy, and
Mhm.
for Rebecca, and for them.
And for everybody that knew her.
Everyone that loved Debbie and Ambria and knew her, and, that it's for them too.
Mhm.
Um,
What's Kristy?
Frame,
Kristy Frame,
everyone,
TT, all of them.
all of them.
Everybody.
This kind of tragedy will shape people's memory
Mhm.
to nothing. And it's been 25 years.
Yeah.
And I think that, like I said, I think that a lot of people want the answers for this. There's the story.
Mhm.
There's the story. There's the story of Debbie and Ambria,
Mhm.
and what we know, what Tommy knows.
Mhm.
Um, yeah,
And I would encourage everybody, pay attention to the memories you have of it,
right. That's right.
because they will tell you the story when you listen and look back.
It's been really hard to put these pieces together.
Mhm.
I think that immediately when we heard that Gary Book was working offshore, that immediately,
Made it feel impossible
right,
that he would have anything to do with this.
right. And Jamie being so close made him an easy target.
Mhm.
Um, my understanding is that Jamie was shook to the core.
Mhm.
Um, had this as it did many people.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like I said, this was not. We're doing this for Debbie and Ambria.
Mhm.
I don't know that we'll ever revisit this case again. I, TBI has all the evidence now and the case in their hands, and a year or two ago, I would have said safely in the hands of TBI.
Mhm.
Now I say that every inconsistency and screw up that came along with this investigation from April the 4th of 1999 until 2022 when TBI took this case, um, it's now covered up by the TBI. So everyone's saying that um, that TBI, you know, learning what we've learned about the TBI, they not only
They just
cover,
lock stuff
they
away,
lock it away,
and you will never get it from them.
and even if the case is closed, like I believe it could be,
Mhm.
I believe that they know who did this,
Mhm.
and even in Tennessee, even if the case is closed, TBI never has to let you know anything at all.
Nope.
Nothing. So every inconsistency and every screw up that the local sheriff's department did in Gibson County or the TBI did back then,
Mhm.
that's it. That's it. And that's terrible. It's like
Yeah.
it's
Yep.
you never know.
Yep.
And that's sad.
Yep. So there it is.
Yeah.
You guys take it for what it's worth. If you got comments, leave your comments. Um, I think it's like she said, we may never revisit this case again, no matter what. Um, I'll say it one last time. Pay attention to those memories.
Yeah.
They'll tell you the story. And we appreciate you guys for listening and
Yeah.
being a part of this. And especially, like you said, for Debbie and Ambria and Tommy and Rebecca, Kristy, TT, all of them.
Yeah.
We appreciate y'all being a part of us growing. And as we have to, all you that listen, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. And most importantly, share these videos. Share these videos.
Yes.
We'll see you on the next one.
Bye.